Um, I have a question surrounding my business is in financial coaching. And as I've gone to try and grow my business, I have put on coaches. At first, I've not been always very good at employing properly. That's been my first lesson. But what I've been finding along the way is that my clients that I hand over to those coaches they seem to want me, and I'm trying to reproduce myself. But I am wondering whether, and I'm praying about this at the moment, whether to actually go it alone and just develop my business as a single coach and developed product, books, DVDs, education packages, that type of thing, and to build my business that way rather than trying to build my coaching staff.
Great. Okay. Well, it's a good question, and obviously it's one that I've walked, so that's super cool. I can understand that they want you, and sometimes we end up feeding that, and that's not a good idea because we're too much of the front woman.
Yeah.
If we take a step back and go, okay, can it be done? Well, there are a few examples of people that have been able to do this, maybe not necessarily in exactly your space, but leverage themselves with a skill set. If you look at the big four accounting firms, Deloitte, KPMG, those guys, obviously, like if you wanted to be part of those companies, you wouldn't ring up and say, I want the founder. You got no chance. So they have been able to replicate themselves with their 5,000 team members around the world who all offer advice in certain areas of accounting or law or whatever. So it can be done that you can replicate. It's not like it's impossible. Now, there are other examples. There are, the largest business coaching firm in the world has done a terrible job of replicating itself, right? It has a huge burn through with franchisees and staff and, very few results for clients and so forth. So there's also plenty of examples of collateral damage about how it hasn't worked. Here's how I feel in amongst all of that. Yes, you should. Yes, one of the avenues to go down is leveraged programs, right? Products, group training, and those sort of things, because they're a better step than just working on your own. So you should do that regardless of whether you take on anybody else. Here's where I had to get to. If I wanted the coaching to be 100% every single time, then I had to be by myself. If I wanted to bring other people in, I had to be happy that the coaching was delivered at 90% good enough. That was a decision that I had to make. And there's no middle ground. Okay. Now, what's super interesting about the 90 and the 100% and the variation is the market have got no idea of the difference. It's only in your head.
Right.
You can't scale. You can't scale you. It's impossible.
Okay.
Because you're bringing all your life's experiences to the table, but you can scale people because other people have knowledge and the ability to teach and be kind and caring. But you have got to be okay with the coaching dropping a little bit in maybe quality to be able to scale it. Now, some people say to me, I can't possibly live with the thought of running at 90% good enough. Well, then you're a one-man band. That's the decision you made. But if you can get okay with it being 90%, and by the way, the market don't know any different, then you can actually scale that and build out a wide business and have 15 coaches or however many you want and go and build something great. You could do that, but it starts in your head. You have to be okay with it looking slightly different.
Yes, and I think at the beginning I did have a problem with being a control freak.
Yep.
And I certainly learned lots of lessons
so
in that.
That never works.
No.
Now also, I mean, there's a couple of things that you can do. So that's the decision in your head, and then we look at practice. If the better systems and processes you can give a coach, the better they're going to be. Okay, so the more you can give them tracks to run on that look like you and sound like you, then the closer you'll get. Okay, so for example, when Craig in my firm came in, he had already been a coach on the sidelines. So I got to see him, test him. He'd been to our trainings. He gave up his time to come and serve at our events for free and listen and hear and apply, and he's like a sponge, so that when it came time for him to come in the firm, he already had our common language, the way I thought, the way I did everything, okay? And he also had his own skills, but he was able to, he invested to make sure, like he invested before he joined. And so I think that's important too, because it just shortens the journey. If you've got to pay someone from day one and they've got to sit with you and learn, that probably doesn't work, because you're going to have to pay for them for 6 months before they're any good. So that probably doesn't work. But if you can actually give a really clear system and process to the coaches, like here's the 20 questions that we're likely to get and here's my answers. Record them all, right? Give them to your team and say, that's what I expect from you. I expect those answers in your words. And you'll find that you'll be able to replicate, right? If you take the time to actually document how you do things incredibly well, and coaching's easy because you can record every conversation and just make those available, to your coaches. They can go through them at night times and learn, and they will pick up the way you do things, and then they'll come pretty close to delivering it the way you want it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But the first step is you've got to be okay with it not being as good as you would do. It's just. Yeah. I just wish I had a better answer, but it was my struggle, right? It was like, man, I wouldn't have said that. It's like, yep, but then I can't scale. So I can't, I kind of feel like as a financial coach, you've got an obligation to scale, because you can't touch it anywhere near enough lives on your own.
Yeah, that's right. It's quite frustrating, actually. I can't do everything.
You can't do it. Well, you can do everything. You can't do it all yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where if you invest the time to create a system, and you invest the time to document your thoughts and, your worldview and, your philosophies, and then you make those available to some coaches, if they're prepared to learn them and do them, you will see the market if fast forward to you having 15 coaches, you could be the face of the company. Yeah. Okay, let me think about My Budget, for example. I'm sure you know about My Budget, right? They're a massive business. I can't imagine that female founder gets on the phone with anybody anymore. So she's still the face. But if I was to ring up My Budget, which praise God I never need to do, I don't expect to speak to the founder, right? Yeah. Because time has passed and they've built a great business, people just assume they can go to one of your coaches and get the same result, and they can. So the early stage is hard. 1 or 2 coaches is really tough, but if you stick to it and build out to multiple, then everybody just knows that that's what they'll get. Good. And I would hate for your experience to make you play. I'd hate for your experience to make you play small. I'd hate for the experience you've had with coaches to make you go back to being a one-man band. You've probably got too many gifts for the world to go back and be a single operator.